There are two kinds of exercise that you can do before a hard day of thinking, and they do almost the opposite thing to your brain. So one leaves you feeling primed, sharp, ready to drop into the work that really matters, and the other leaves you feeling kind of cooked, foggy, slow, right when you need your brain to work the most. And here's the part that I think catches a lot of people out. The second kind, the one that dulls your thinking, is usually the one that you're most proud of. It's the hard session, the one that feels like a really good, proper training session. Now, I've spent over 2 decades coaching people through this, and I've done it myself more times than I should probably admit. So I want to show you how to use movement to walk into those deep work sessions already sharp, and how to stop the workout you think is helping from quietly kind of flattening the most important hours of your day. I'm Gavin Eivers, a strength conditioning and rehabilitation coach and cognitive performance specialist. Now, the people I work with don't just train to look better, they train because they think for a living, often under pressure. And they've worked out that their brain performs differently depending on how they move their body. So that's what I coach, and it's what I talk about in these videos. Not exercise for its own sake, but exercise as the lever that sets your brain up for better thinking. And here's the way I want you to think about yourself for the next 10 minutes. As an athlete, right? Your event just happens to be thinking, because a good athlete doesn't only train hard, they train in the right order, so that the session that matters the most isn't sabotaged by the one they've done before it. So if a sprinter, for example, has a sprint session on Tuesday, they don't do a brutal heavy leg session in the gym on Tuesday morning, or even Monday. Not because the heavy leg session doesn't matter, it matters enormously. But if your legs are knackered, the sprints suffer, and the sprints were the whole point. That's not laziness, that's planning, and it's exactly how you should be treating the days you need your brain to perform at its sharpest. And the first thing to understand is that there isn't one way to train for your brain. There's a right way for each kind of work. So what you'll do before a day of maybe detailed analysis is different from what you might do before a day of creative thinking, or a day of back-to-back meetings, or walking on stage to present something. Now, some of those actually want more energy in the battery, not less. And I'll get into each of those across the next few weeks or so. But today is the one I think most people get wrong most often, which is deep, focused, analytical work, the really hard thinking. So let me tell you what made this obvious to me years ago with my own training. So I used to do my hardest gym sessions first thing in the morning. Then I would sit down to do the work that needed my sharpest brain, because that felt right. But I could never work out why those mornings, the ones that I'd set up really carefully, were so often my slowest. I'd done everything you're supposed to do. I trained early, got the blood going, and then I just kind of stare at my screen, feeling like my brain was walking through mud. Now, it took me an embarrassingly long time to see it, but the training wasn't preparing me for the work, it was competing with it. So here's what's actually going on, because once you see the mechanism, the fix becomes a little bit more obvious. So when you move, good things happen to your brain pretty much straight away, right? Your heart pushes more blood to the brain, carrying oxygen and fuel to the regions that you think with. You also release more dopamine and your epinephrine, which sharpen attention and make it easier to kind of lock onto one thing. So over time, you also build more BDNF, which is essentially like fertilizer for your brain. Now, for a fairly short window after the right amount of movement, you are measurably more alert and more able to concentrate. So that's real, and it's why a walk often unlocks an idea that you might never have even had if you just stayed at your desk. But there's a second thing that happens when you push really hard, and it pulls in the opposite direction. So hard training spikes cortisol, which is your main stress hormone, and it creates genuine physical fatigue. So your body shifts into recovery mode, wanting to send its resources to repairing what you just did to it, right? So after a really hard session, there's a stretch where you don't feel sharp at all. You feel like maybe pleasantly wrecked, kind of warm, heavy, ready for a shower, and you just might want to sit down for a bit. Now, that feeling is wonderful. It's also the exact opposite of the state that you want for analytical work. So, and I think a lot of ambitious people schedule their hardest thinking right into that, after that heavy gym session. The way I explain it to clients is like this. So if you picture a single battery that powers your hard thinking, and both your exercise and deep work draw down from that same battery. Now, a moderate bit of movement actually charges the battery, right? It primes the system, but push past a certain point and the training starts draining the very battery that your analytical work needs. So you arrive at your desk already half depleted, already half empty. And it's the same logic a coach uses with an athlete. You don't send someone into the session that matters with the battery half run down already. You plan the week so they arrive charged for the thing that's really important, the thing that counts. So before deep work, the aim isn't the best workout you've ever done. It's the right dose, enough to prime you, not so much that it drains you. More is not always better, right? The right thing is better. That one shift in thinking gets you using exercise as a tool for your brain, for your work, for your ambition. So let me try and make this properly practical, because you can use this tomorrow morning. The first principle is to match the intensity to the work. Before deep analytical thinking, you want moderate movement, not maximal, something that kind of clearly lifts your heart rate and breathing, but leaves you feeling switched on rather than emptied. A brisk walk, an easy jog, a steady cycle, maybe some mobility, light resistance circuit, nowhere near failure. And the test is simple. If you'd happily walk straight to your desk and start thinking after that session, you got the dose right. If you feel like you need to go and lie down for a bit, you went too hard for this particular job. The second principle is timing. So that primed window, the lift in blood flow and focus chemicals, is strongest for a while after you move. And it doesn't last all day, maybe 1, 2, sometimes 3 hours. So put the movement just before the work, close enough to ride that window, which might not be the first thing in the morning. If if the thinking you need to do isn't until afternoon, then plan that kind of low intensity work just before that. Now there's a catch at the near end too. So don't go straight from moving into thinking while you're still hot and breathing hard, because your body's still in movement mode and you'll just kind of fidget instead of focus. So leave a short gap, move, settle for a few minutes, glass of water, then sit down while the window's open. So moderate movement, a brief little settle down, then the hard cognitive work. If you can get that rhythm right, the rest tends to look after itself. The third principle is to keep the hard training away from your sharpest hours. Now, this is a mistake that I made for years. Now, if you love intense workouts, and I do, just be deliberate about where you put them in your diary. Now, if you think back to the sprinter, they don't do heavy legs the morning of a sprint session, because the sprint session, which is the one that matters most, would really suffer. So you've got to treat your hardest thinking the same way. Don't put your hardest workout right before the work that needs your best attention or in your best brain. Use the moderate dose to prime your thinking and save the brutal sessions for after the deep work when it's done, or maybe on a different day when the recovery that demands isn't fighting for your concentration from the same kind of battery. And I want to be really clear about something here, because I know some of you train seriously. Now, I'm not telling you to back off the hard stuff. The genuinely tough training, the progressive overload, your HIIT, your Metcon, the sessions that actually build strength and fitness, all of that matters enormously. And I'd never tell you to drop it. No athlete skips their heavy sessions either. They just put them where they won't wreck the session that counts. None of this is about training less or training easier. It's about timing. Now, if you've got important work that needs your sharpest brain, use moderate movement to set that up, do the work, and put the hard session afterwards. You still get every bit of the training in, you just stop letting it cost you the thinking that matters most on that particular day. And the fourth principle is to use movement to rescue focus, not just to start it. So deep work draws down the battery as you go. And when your concentration starts sliding after a long work period, the instinct might be just to kind of grind through it. Usually, a better move is to get up and walk around for 10 minutes. Put down your phone, don't scroll, just move. That short, moderate burst tops the system back up and clears some of the fatigue that you might feel. And you come back with the battery more charged than if you just kind of force your way through. The break isn't lost time, it's what buys you the next good block of work. And here's something that I've noticed over the years, and it might help you spot this in yourself. So the people who get this wrong are almost never lazy. They're the complete opposite. They're the ones who care the most, who train the hardest, who push themselves in the morning because that's just who they are and what they do, you know, and that's exactly why they kind of flatten themselves before the desk. The instinct that makes them go hard in the gym is the same instinct that drains the battery before they had a chance to think. So if this is you, it isn't a discipline problem. If anything, it's too much discipline, but pointed at the wrong moment. So that's the shift. Stop asking yourself, did I train hard enough before that deep work session? And start asking, did I train my brain or did I drain my brain? So moderate movement, timed just before, hard sessions kept clear of your sharpest working hours, and a walk to reset when focus fades. It costs nothing, but a bit of planning maybe. And it's the difference between sitting down already sharp and sitting down waiting for your brain to catch up. Now, I know the question that you're really asking is probably fine, but what exactly do I do? For how long and when? The principles matter most because they let you fit this into your own life. But I know it helps to have the actual routine in your hands rather than just kind of working it out for yourself. So I've built it. In this week's newsletter, there's a short, simple movement routine made specifically to prime your brain before deep analytical work. So it's what to do, how long, how hard, and how to slot it in around the work that really matters, straight from the 4 principles in this episode. Now it's free, it goes to everyone in the newsletter, and the link to join is in the description below. So if this episode was useful, that's where you can go to actually put it into action tomorrow. The sharp, clear head you're chasing when you sit down to think isn't only about focus or willpower. A lot of it is decided in the hour before by what you ask your body to do. So get the dose and the timing right, and you stop turning up to your most important work already tired. So treat yourself like the athlete you are. Your event is thinking. Plan your training around the moments that matter. Prime for them, you know, and put the hard work where it makes you stronger without costing you the session that really counts. Now, if you do that, and you stop letting your training get in the way of your best work and start using it to set that work up. And if you want a clearer picture of where your own brain performance stands right now, how you're moving, sleeping and eating and how it's showing up in your focus and energy, I put together a free 3-minute cognitive assessment that looks at exactly that. And I'll leave the link in the description below. And if this is the kind of thing that's useful to you, the newsletter is where I go deeper every single week and where this week's deep routine workout is waiting. So subscribe below and I'll see you there.